and welcome to AutoEV, and welcome to what is going to be a slightly different episode this week. When I used to sell cars, I was selling Aston Martins, Porsches, Ferraris, and a lot of people used to stop me and say, "What'll she do, mister?" In other words, what was the top speed? Now, since I've started reviewing electric cars, I still get asked, "What'll she do, mister?" But people seem to be more focused on the actual range of the car. And that seems to be something that is still very, very important when it comes to choosing an electric car, despite the fact that most people's average daily commute is less than 25 miles. But of course, we still have to undertake longer journeys. My family, for instance, live in Scotland, 300 miles away from where I live in Surrey. So this gave me a little bit of an idea. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, a man called Tim Hutton, who's the managing editor of ClassicDriver.com. And if you haven't looked at that website and you're into your cars, go and have a look at it. He was telling me about this unofficial club back in the 1980s when the city types would buy their 911 turbos and the Ferrari Testarossas and race around the M25. And that gave me a bit of an idea. What we're going to do today is a not scientific, but real world evaluation of range. The M25, which is a mile down that road, is 117 miles in diameter. It's the second longest orbital road in Europe. This is an Audi e-Tron 55 Quattro Sportback S-Line, which according to Audi should give 237 miles on a full charge. But is that realistic? Can I get almost 2 laps of the M25 out of this car? Well, that's what we're going to try today. So what's the difference between this car and the e-Tron that we featured before? Well, it's the Sportback. It's this sort of coupe-like profile. This is the second of Audi's e-Tron models, full EVs. It's a 55, denoting the fact that this car has the 95 kilowatt hour battery. There is going to be a 50 model, which is I think a 71 kilowatt hour battery coming. But I like SUVs, I really do, and we have one in the family. But although it's an old Land Rover, it's more of a sort of off-roader than an SUV. But I do like them. But the one thing I don't like is the coupe ones. I don't see the point of them. As I said before, they just seem a bit style over substance. But in the world of the BMW X6, the Mercedes GLE Coupe, the Audi e-Tron Sportback is certainly the better looking one, and I think it does look a little bit better than the standard e-Tron, if I'm honest with you. I quite like it. It's a bit more cohesive looking. I quite like this sort of like sloping back, these lovely sort of like haunches that extend right out into this really nice sort of like little tail spoiler up here, and this little curvature that Audi have got here is going on is really quite nice. Can't say I'm a big lover of the red paintwork, if I'm honest. I think on a grey or a silver or a black car it would look a little bit more sort of like stylish, a little bit more menacing, but in this Catalunya red paint it doesn't really do a lot for me. And there's a lot of these little kind of streaks going on here, as you can see. Now Audi say that's to sort of like symbolise a battery charge. Okay, if you say so, Audi. But they're there in the lights, they're there in the wheels, they're there along on the side sills, they're on various other little bits that you'll see around about the car. Okay, so welcome. This is us on the M25. Now I live just off junction 13, so that's where we've pulled on, and we're going to be going in a clockwise direction and seeing how far round we can get. Now there aren't a huge amount of chargers. There is a few chargers actually on the M25, but there's some at the services in the north and the south. So let's see how we get on. But disappointingly, I've pulled onto the motorway, which as I say was a mile away from where we started, and it's already, the range has dropped to 188 miles, which isn't ideal. Now I know EVs aren't at their best on a motorway, but this is what I'm saying. I want this to be real world. I don't want this to be a scientific experiment. I want this to be real world. I mean, people have to use their cars. And one of the things, whilst I do like the Audi e-Tron, one of the things I found when we tested the full size one back last year was it wasn't the most efficient car, which is why I've decided to use this car, and let's see what we can do. Now, there's no difference in the battery size with the Sportback to the standard car. As we said, it's the 55 model, so it's the 95 kilowatt hour battery. You've got this lovely little charging port, standard CCS, there's one on either side. It'll take speeds of up to 150 kilowatts, and if you can find a charger that will do that, then you'll go up to 80% in 30 minutes. But obviously bear in mind it's a 95 kilowatt hour battery, so it will take a bit longer to fill, and most people will probably come across the 50 kilowatt chargers, and if on one of those it's more like 70 minutes to take you up to the 80%. Obviously from a home wall box it's overnight. So, little update for everyone. I've pulled into South Mim Services, which is at the top of the M25. If you look at it as a kind of clock face, it's the bottom of the A1M. And we have covered 38.4 miles, and the car is showing a range now of 155 miles left. So it's sort of got it back to where it was saying earlier. So it's doing okay. I'm just going to turn the camera around and show you the dash there. So there we are there, 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour. Now that is the new miles per gallon thing that we all need to be concentrating on. And 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour, well, it's not really ideal. It should be able to do a little bit more than that, because obviously if you think of 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour, and it's a 95 kilowatt hour battery, now you can do the maths here. Now, boot space is less than the standard e-Tron at 615 litres, so it's 45 litres down on that, but it is still bigger than a Jaguar I-Pace, which is probably this car's main rival. Sorry, I forgot my practical suitcases today to show you, but anyway, you've got a little bit of underfloor storage in there. The seats go down, the sort of split 3, 40, 40, 20, which is ideal really, because obviously it means if you've got a slightly longer load you can pop it through, and you've got this split sort of tailgate here as well, sorry, parcel shelf here on the tailgate as well, which goes up and down with it. So there's still plenty of room in the car despite that sort of like sloping back. Now back here, you've actually got still a reasonable amount of headroom, despite the roof being 20 millimeters lower than a standard e-Tron. I mean, I'm not exactly tall, but what they've actually done is they've got little cutouts almost in the ceiling, these little kind of hollowed out bits, which just help. The seating for obviously for 3 across, although the centre person's going to have to put up with a little bit harder backrest. But although it's not a dedicated EV platform, there's very little in the way of tunnel intrusion into the car, and that's because it's built on a slightly modified combustion engine car platform. But even so, there's probably only about an inch or so rise in the floor, so it's relatively flat floor in here. But look, it's absolutely acres of legroom. I mean, it's super back here, and of course it's an Audi, so the interior quality is second to none. Back in the car, so as I say, we're at Thurrock Services, which is on the opposite side to the M25 to where we set off from. We've done 73 miles. We've got 131 miles remaining. I'm going to go back on. I've mounted the camera now so I can talk to you a little bit about the car. But I wanted to. I have to say, having done this journey in the Audi, I'm really starting to warm to it. Not that I wasn't warm to it before. I mean, it is an impressive car. It is a very impressive car. It's just that there isn't. I always preferred the I-Pace. Now, I'm not a big lover of these sort of coupe SUV style cars. You know, the BMW X6, the Mercedes GLC, even Audi's Q8, I can't say that I'm a massive fan of it. But if you do, I don't see the point in having a coupe SUV. I just don't see the point. If you need an SUV, you need practicality, and then you limit the practicality by having a sort of coupe version of it. Seems odd to me. But if you are going to have one, I really think this e-Tron is probably the best looking of them. I'm not struck on the bright red one that I have, but you know, I think in a slightly more subtle colour, it would be quite nice. As I say, I'm about to join the M25. There was a massive queue coming up to Dartford, the Dartford crossing on it. It said there was some kind of obstruction. So let's see how we get back on with this. If you're not familiar with the M25, if you're from another part of the country, welcome to London. M25 South, here we go. Dartford crossing. Yep. Hurry up and wait. What I now need to figure out is how far I'm going to get, because technically I can't get 2 laps from where I started. I can't get 2 full revolutions of the M25 from where I started, which means then I'm going to have to charge at some point, and it's how far I then can get back round. So I can get 1 full revolution because it's 50 miles round numbers back to the start, and I've got 130 miles left, so that leaves me with 80 miles of range. Is that then enough to get to the Ionity chargers back at Clackett Lane, which is the services on the south side of the M25? I'm sure they've got Ionity chargers, which are the rapid chargers, which the Audi can take. So that'll be interesting. I've got the spec sheet for this particular car here. And as I said before, the car is not an inexpensive car to start with. It's £79,000 starting price. This particular car I have here today is a Natch Chuff under £90,000. I'll go through some of these options. The Catalunya red metallic paint, which I didn't even know was metallic, £750. Super sport seats in black Volcona leather with rock grey diamond stitching, £1,050. Virtual door mirrors, £1,250. Well, that's a waste of money for a start. Don't bother with them. The orange e-Tron brake calipers, they're £425. This is not a cheap car, folks. Bear that in mind. I still don't get on with these virtual mirrors. I still don't get on with them at all. It's they're not in the position I want them to be. They're really, and as I say, you've still got this mount where the camera is, so it still catches your eye, and you keep looking at that first thinking that's the mirror, and then realise, oh no, it's down here. And it's just that bit of time it takes. I just don't think it's as well. Honda have executed it on the little E so well, because the cameras are mounted further down the door so you can't see them, and then they mount the screen where you expect to find the mirror, and that to me is so much better. And you kind of, yeah, I don't see the need for them. I don't see what purpose they are serving over the standard, but thankfully they are an option on the e-Tron. £1,250, which is not a insignificant amount, I have to say. Would it be my £1,250? Absolutely not. Which is still a bonnet in my opinion. We're not going to start using silly things like fruits and frunks and all sorts. Anyway, underneath here you've got a little bit of storage and a bag for your cables. It's brilliant. Attention to detail. Love it. Here we are, 70 miles an hour, coming pan to 50. Immediately it brings me back down to the right speed. Gosh, it's so clever. How many cars get to be so clever? And here we are at South Clackett Lane Services. Am I using the Ecotricity chargers? No, I'm not. And there's a reason for that, because we've still got plenty of juice in the tank. Okay, so we're at Clackett Lane Services, which is the services on the south of the M25. We have covered 94.1 miles. Bearing in mind, as I say, the M25 is 117 miles round. The car is telling me we've still got 100 miles of range left. It's been doing 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which, as I say, kind of isn't brilliant, but actually it's not bad either. So the car's done the 94 miles plus the 100, so it's saying I should get 194 miles out of the car, which is short of where Audi suggests the car should be at 237. But we know that WLTP figures and manufacturers' figures, they're done in laboratories. This is why I wanted to do this. I wanted to show you a real world scenario. You know, where I've had, as I say, the air conditioning on, I've had the radio on, you know, we've had the cruise control on at 70 miles an hour, and we're on a motorway all the time. So bar that traffic jam that we had going on to Dartford, there hasn't been the ability for that stop-start. But on saying that, it's better than I thought it was going to be, if I'm honest with you. I genuinely thought that the car was going to end up doing about 140 to 150 miles and really letting us down, but it hasn't done. So it's not bad in terms of where it should be. It's just a shame that out of a 95 kilowatt hour battery you can't get more range out of that. Anyway, I'm just going to change the mount on the camera. I'm just going to change things around, and then I'm going to get back on the road and see what else we can do. Right, so we're back at South Mims Services, which is the services on the north side of the M25, the bottom of the A1M. I'm not going to try and get further round in a clockwise direction. Instead, I'm going to turn round and head back towards Chertsey, because the range of the car is now saying 39 miles, and my sat nav is telling me it's 39 miles to my house from South Mims. This should be interesting. Oh, there's a Rolls Royce Cullinan. Right, let's see how we get on. Now the range has dropped. It's telling me I've only got 30 miles. And I've got 33 miles to go. Gosh. Oh. There isn't an eco mode in here either, I don't think. There is just a normal. No, there isn't. I don't have an eco mode in here. I'm just going to slipstream this truck. Let's see how far I can get out of this. It's embarrassing in your £90,000 Audi when you're doing 50 miles an hour in a slow lane of the M25, slipstreaming trucks trying to save range. I have chanced my arm with an EV before. I did quite a distance in an MG ZS EV once, and I just managed to limp it home. So I'm sort of hoping. Oh, the dash has gone all red now. The battery meter gauge has gone red. Doesn't like running this low. I'm not sure it's probably good for them either, running it this low. Still, it's all for you. That's why I'm doing it. To be informative. I've almost got it to where the range is equal to the distance left. Okay, so this is me coming back off the motorway on the M25 and back to junction 11, which is my junction. The car has done today so far 195 miles, 195.4 miles. It's saying I've got 6 miles left, so 201 miles, which is pretty much where we were when we left off this morning, because I said at the time it was saying, I think, 198 miles, but then it sort of caught up with itself a little bit. So it's kind of done what it said. So its efficiency, you know, as I say, you know, and let's remember, we did a real world test. We had the aircon on for, you know, for 98% of the time. We had the radio on. I was doing 70 miles an hour on a motorway. We didn't really have any hold-ups. We just had that one time at Dartford where I had a bit of a hold-up. You know, it's done what it said it was going to do. I can't really criticise it for that. I can criticise Audi for building a car with a 95 kilowatt hour battery that will only do 200 miles. I can criticise that. You'd expect a battery like that to get well over 300 miles, but it's just such a big heavy car. I feel like what we should have had ingrained in this video is, you know, the clock from 24. If you ever remember that programme, 24 with Kiefer Sutherland, where the clock used to count down at the end. It's one of those, add to the drama. Well, I can almost see my house from here, so the worst comes to the worst, I can push it. Actually, no, I don't think I could push it. It's a heavy car. Well, there we go, folks. We've made it. So, we have done 198.4 miles. Actually, we've done a little bit more than that on a full charge because I did the school run this morning. So yeah, the car has done just over 200 miles and it's got 4 miles left to go. It's averaged 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour. And as I say, bear in mind that has literally all been motorway driving at 70 miles an hour with the systems on. So that's not bad. Now, Audi say that the Sportback should be a little bit more dynamic to drive over the regular e-Tron, because what it does is it can decouple its front motor. So it's still the same powertrain that you get with the regular e-Tron, with the 300 kilowatt power output split between motors front and rear. So it is Quattro, but it's saying that it can decouple the one at the front to provide just power to the rear. So most of the time it can be rear wheel drive, which isn't very Quattro. Still, yes, there is a little bit of a difference. Yes, there is a little bit more dynamic capability with the car. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think the I-Pace is the one to beat. It's the benchmark, you know, in terms of the way the cars drive, of all these sort of like luxury SUV EVs. But it's okay, you know, and as I say, I don't think it's just marketing speak from Audi's point of view. Fast Audis have never... They've always been very sure-footed and very safe, and whilst fast, they've been devoid of a little bit of dynamic feedback, and I think that's still the case here. I still don't think, you know, they've got the whole sort of like driver enjoyment licked, and it's certainly just too big a car. And you can feel the weight of it. I mean, the batteries are slung underneath, so the centre of gravity, and of course with that sort of like slightly different roofline, it will have a lower centre of gravity, but it's still a big heavy SUV at the end of the day, and it's still not going to be dynamic like a sort of like a sports saloon or anything like that. But it's good. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm you know, horses for courses. It is good. The steering feels slightly better than the e-Tron I remember from last year, and I'm not sure if it should be. I thought it was a little bit woolly, a little bit dead, but this one feels quite nice. It's on different wheels and tyres, that's for definite, so maybe that's where I'm feeling the difference. Brakes are nice though, brakes are good, and obviously you can adjust the regeneration with them as well. That you can do. So yeah, so it's good. It's just not, it's not an I-Pace. I still think that, as I say, is the one that, in terms of dynamics, that would be the car for me if you were going to hustle one of these down a road. So, the Audi e-Tron 55 Sportback, what do we think? Well, oddly, considering I'm not a big lover of these coupe SUVs, I actually prefer it to the standard e-Tron. I think Audi have done a great job on the styling of it, and actually you don't lose a huge amount of practicality with that more kind of coupe-like styling. So it's fine from that point of view. I think it drives well, I think it's exquisitely built, I think it's beautifully refined, but it is a little bit too heavy, and it is just for a 95 kilowatt hour battery. I think the range is still lacking. I'd like to see more range out of the car, despite the test that we've done and despite us getting a reasonable mileage out of the car. So there we go. There's no real definitive verdict. I prefer it, some people won't. Audi, you've done a nice job, but for me, I'd buy a Jaguar I-Pace if I'm honest with you. Anyway, thanks for watching AutoEV. Usual stuff, like, subscribe, comment if you want to. Thanks again for watching. Visit the website, usual stuff. We'll see you again soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.